Thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate everything that you and your team and Iman and his team have done. Really big kudos to you both and your teams for pulling this off. And thank you very much for allowing me to have a few minutes. So good morning, afternoon, evening to everybody. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with us and with me in particular. I'm going to go ahead and get some things pulled up here. Here we go. So as Alex mentioned, I am the chair in entrepreneurship at John Carroll University and lead the entrepreneurship program there. Also been very fortunate to be the president-elect of USASBE. Talk a little bit about that later, and also started a blog and a full curriculum with a couple buddies of mine at teachingentrpreneurship.org. So today I wanted to talk a little bit, and then we'll kick you off into some breakout rooms and have you do some stuff, and then come back and talk a little bit more. And the focus really was around this notion of experiential and sort of reimagining what we do and how we do it. And this word experiential gets thrown around a lot. I'm not sure any of us really has a complete handle on what it is or what it could be or the power of it, but it's something that I've been playing around with for a number of years and experimenting with. And so I'll sort of share my 2 cents and give you a perspective from my seat, and really kind of diving deep in some of this stuff for a little bit, and then have you do some stuff, play around a little bit, and then come back. So when I think about something being experiential, it really kind of has these few elements, right? So it goes beyond the walls that we typically think of as the classroom. It involves student agency. It involves mastery learning. It involves experiences that are very relevant and that are socially embedded. So it kind of has these 5 components. It's really difficult to do. I think it's really difficult to do at all, let alone do it very well, which is part of the challenge I think that all of us have, and that I would encourage all of us to try to meet, right? So diving a little deeper, beyond the walls, the idea I think of here is that, you know, the learning and the experience in which students can learn can take place many different times in many different places in many different contexts. The classroom is, in my opinion, is the least of those places, least impactful of those places. And so we all are situated in some kind of community. It might be a large community, it might be a small community, it might be isolated, or it might be right in the heart of, you know, a big metropolitan area or in between. But we're all in a community. And so I would encourage people to get their students out beyond the walls of the classroom, beyond the walls of the building, the university, and get into the community where they can actually engage in learning within the community in which they're situated. Having some agency, so this to me is really a big part of the core of it, where it's students that are actively participating in designing and sort of realizing and capturing learning that actually matters to them. So it's giving them a choice and giving them a strong voice in the learning, where we're not just developing it and delivering it from, you know, soup to nuts, but we give the students individually a very active choice and voice in their learning process, right? The other critical component is this notion of mastery learning. This is nothing new, and there's a lot of verbiage around this kind of stuff too. There's competency-based, problem-based, all those kind of things. I think they're, you know, they're different, right? They're nuanced differences in things. I tend to like this notion of mastery learning, where again, they are sort of learning and progressing at their own pace. It's sort of an individual journey that they're on, and they're on a journey to get to a point where they can master knowledge, where they can master skills, and where they can master dispositions, and they create a portfolio of evidence that people can evaluate, assess, and the students can then share with anybody to say, here's how you know that I've mastered this knowledge, these skills, and these dispositions. So that mastery piece, I think, is really absolutely critical to this notion of experiential, right? The other thing is making it relevant. So we can do all these things, and we could offer these kind of experiences to students, but if it's not relevant to them, if they don't, you know, care about it, it's hard for it to sink in. And so I try to think about this in the sense of, allowing students and enabling students and inviting students to solve authentic problems in the real world, situated in their communities, situated in communities in which they are a part, whether it's at a school or back home if they're from somewhere else, and give them permission and allow them to solve authentic problems in those communities, make it relevant to them so that they can see and feel and touch and smell and hear and taste, whatever's going on, but it becomes very relevant and very real to them. And then the last part is for it to be socially embedded. So again, it's building relationships within the communities in which they're learning and growing and working, and developing meaningful relationships. So it's over time, right? It's spending time over and over and over again in these same communities with these same populations of people where they can build meaningful relationships, and they create sort of this community partnership of learning. And so that's my impression or my contextualization of what this experiential thing is all about. And when I try to build learning experiences, when I try to learn about, how can I be better at what I do and how can I create better experiences for students, these are the kinds of things I think about. And so I would challenge all of us to, really think about and really do some research and look into what is it we mean, right? And what versions of these things can we do? I tend to be a little crazy. I tend to be far, far, far out on the limb and on the ledge in terms of what I'm willing to do. I don't suggest everybody do that. Everybody needs to be in their comfort zone, but maybe take a little bit of a step outside your comfort zone too, and try some of these things. Okay, so embrace it, right? Give it a shot. Try some of these things. And it could be taking one little lesson from one, module in your course and trying to tweak it a little bit. It could be taking a larger module over the course of, 3 or 4 class periods or whatever, and tweaking that and trying to build some of this stuff in. Or it could be, right, the way I tend to work, which again, I don't necessarily suggest to everybody, is just throw the whole thing out and get crazy with it and try to redesign the whole entire package. There's different risk levels and different consequences and challenges that come with any of that, of course, but my challenge is embrace it. Try it. You're here. You showed up for this conference for what Alex and Iman are doing. So you obviously have some interest, some passion, and you want to learn more and connect with people who are doing this. So you're here. You showed up. So my urge to you and my encouragement to you is really dive in. Don't just listen to the people today. Follow up with them. Connect with each other. Learn what other people are doing in similar communities and different communities, and try to see what you can bring on and adapt for your own purposes in your own classrooms for your own students. So what we're going to do is I'm going to kick you off into breakout rooms, and we have a challenge for you, right? So in this notion of experiential education, a lot of people, again, have a lot of different definitions or perspectives on what that is. So I want you to kind of feel what a lot of professors I engage with, the kind of experience they create for their students, right? So I want you to kind of feel what that's like, and then we'll come back and we'll kind of talk about it, and I'll share some more stuff. So for about 20 minutes or so, I'm gonna ask. I think Sky has it. Somebody has control, and they can sort of send you off into breakout rooms. But you have a mission in your breakout room, should you choose to accept it. You have a challenge or a mission, and your mission is to eradicate classroom lecturing, right? Now, I don't mind being judgy here. I think classroom lecturing is a terrible idea. So all that stuff I just did where I lectured you about all that stuff is really a terrible idea. I think there's much better ways to do it. So your goal in 20 minutes is to come up with a way to eradicate classroom lecturing, okay? And the way you do this is you look around your surroundings and you pick one item, one random thing that's around you. Maybe you have a coffee cup, maybe you have a pen, maybe you have a unicorn eraser, whatever you got. So you pick up one random item, each person in the group, and then you have to combine all those items and develop an effective solution to stop classroom lecturing. Okay? So your goal is one random item each, combine those into an effective solution to stop classroom lecturing. So you got about 20 minutes. I'll try and hop in and out of breakout rooms and see how things are going. Sky, do you have control? Can you set up breakout rooms?
I have control here. Kyle here. I'm gonna split you guys up now. I'll do it randomly assigned.
Yeah, just totally random. No worries.
Yes, random assign.
And then we'll come back in about 20 minutes or so. We'll call you back in.
And the status
Du Frank idag. Ik een keer.
Kyle, you want to try bringing folks back?
Kyle, did you hear Doan? Okay, I'm gonna text him real quick. Okay, Doan?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, he's gonna bring everybody back, okay, Doan? Right
Thanks,
now.
man.
Yeah, for sure.
That was too quick.
Hello.
Welcome back, everybody.
Okay, Doan, you got us right in the middle of a heated discussion. That was beautiful.
We got most people back, Kyle?
People are joining back in now. They have to. They all have a request on their screen to click back into the main room. So people are trickling in.
Gotcha. Okay.
By the way, the request says that there's like 3,600 seconds to go. So.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that. I don't know why. It should be shorter. But hopefully people start clicking back in soon.
Gotcha. We'll give them a minute.
Doan, I would say at this point, let's go ahead. Some people may have migrated over to the other session. So
Sure.
you know,
So welcome back, everybody. So I try to, I do this this exercise or this kind of exercise in a lot of different environments, and I won't try to debrief it here with this many people. It could be a bit of a mess. But basically, I hear comments and when I've done this in settings where with educators, with teachers, whether it be at a high school level, sort of secondary, primary level, or college level, I hear kind of these kind of sentiments, right? That I wasn't quite sure what to do. It was kind of fun. I didn't quite get what we were doing. I think I understand why we did this. And so I sort of purposely set it up because this is what I've seen. This kind of a thing is what I've seen in a lot of classrooms that professors and teachers do to students. And some of us see it as kind of fun and entertaining, and there might be some engagement and that kind of a thing. But oftentimes it really kind of misses the point, right? And again, to go back to some of the points I was making earlier and how I try to develop experiences and lesson plans and modules and courses as a whole is to give students as much autonomy and agency as possible. So talk to your students, get to know your students, ask them questions, understand how they learn, right? People learn in very different ways. So, why do assignments have to be written or a video or, PowerPoints or whatever? Let them have some ownership and some agency around how they learn and how they deliver deliverables to you, right? So let them play a little bit. Let them learn at their own pace, right? This one is a bit challenging within some of our structures, but to me, what's more important than the eventual outcome is the process. And so these students are not all going to get to the same outcome. And I think to expect that of them is irresponsible of us. I think instead we need to set them on course to go through a process and let them progress through that process at their own pace, because we all learn differently and we learn in different ways. I would offer, and I tend to, because again, this way of teaching is a little different for a lot of students. And oftentimes, as we're seeing nowadays with everything going on, people don't always react all that well to uncertainty. I offer extreme instructions. So get crazy detailed with the instructions that you give people, because if you don't, they can get a little lost and they can get a little disengaged. And that's the last thing we want. So the more instructions you can offer, the better. Just everything and anything you can give them. Anything you're doing, again, I try to encourage people to position it in your own community, make it hit home, make it seem real with real people, with real businesses, with real community. And then last and certainly not least is to be a role model. Learning should be fun. So have fun with what you're doing. Be silly, have a little bit of fun, be willing to fail at things, be willing to try things out and experiment with things and fail. That's what we are and should be asking our students to do. And so demonstrate that. Let them know that you're going to try some of this stuff and that it may not go all that well, but you're going to learn and you're going to learn together. And then always be kind of thinking about what comes next, right? And be forward thinking, both in terms of, tomorrow's module, next week's module, next semester, next quarter, whatever. So those are just some of the sort of suggestions I have in terms of how you can not deliver the experience you all went through, which, isn't necessarily bad, but I think it misses a lot of points. And I intentionally set it up that way, just so you can kind of think and feel and go, is that the way I want my students to feel when they go through these learning experiences? Or think about other times in your life where you've had agency, where you've been able to learn at your own pace, where you really truly understand what you're doing, and where it means something to you because it's in your local community. And would you rather want experiences like that for your students? Personally, I think I want the latter, right? I think it's a more powerful learning opportunity for the students. So generally speaking, right now, in the world and what's going on, I think we have a huge opportunity, and we have a huge opportunity to sort of pause and reflect on what we do. And shame on us if we snap back to the normal, snap back to the way that we've. I think we have an opportunity to, as Alex and his crew have set out there with this notion of reimagining, to reimagine our role as educators, as coaches, as guides, whatever that might be. And also then to reimagine our courses, to reimagine these learning experiences, and to reimagine the student experience. I think personally, that's what this is all about. It's all about this student experience. And so I think we have the opportunity to reimagine that and to try some things, experiment with some things. We have a little bit of an asterisk on our jobs right now and on our what we do, because I think a lot of people are going to give us some latitude to experiment and play around. And I think if we don't do that, then we miss a monster opportunity. And that's really a shame. It's a shame for us, it's a shame for our field, and it's a shame for our students. So I did want to leave you with some resources. And again, we'll share these slides so people have them. USASBE, as Alex mentioned, he's been involved for a long time. I've been involved for a long time. Wonderful community of people, educators who are interested in really kind of bold teaching, scholarship, and practice of entrepreneurship education. Lots and lots of resources, syllabi exchange, podcasts, journal, all that kind of stuff. So check it out. I am the co-founder of teachingentrpreneurship.org. We have a lot of free resources, lesson plans, exercises, that kind of a thing. And then we also have a full curriculum that we built. Kahoot and Gimkit are two tools that both of which I've used. Gimkit's I'm relatively new too, but these are like ways to create interactive, engaging discussions and some competition among your students to generate a little bit more lively discussions. Marvel is an app where, you know, kids can go on and super easy, just create digital products, you know, where they can test things out and see how things look. Couple more. Packback is a business some students of mine founded years ago. It's really inquiry-driven, artificial intelligence-enabled online discussions. It creates unbelievable depth of discussion. Martin Lackius and his crew out in Sweden have built this platform, and it's really about action-based learning. It's a very powerful thing that I'm working to bring into my classes and our curriculum. And then the last two, if you were around yesterday, you heard from Dr. Alex Bruton and Dr. Jeffrey Stamp. Alex has some amazing resources around idea making, his Idea Maker course. And then Jeff, of course, Dr. Stamp has a lot of resources around creativity. So these are just a lot of resources where they're fairly easily accessible. They don't have a steep learning curve, and they really can make a big difference in the engagement and the energy in your classrooms. So I'll leave you with this. I'm happy to help. I'd love to help people, and emails there, cell phone numbers there, you know, if I can help in any way. And then open it up, you know, if people have questions, we can do Q&A or however you want to run that, Alex.
Doan, let's, you know, I'm seeing some questions here that also came up in our breakout room. And so let's handle the elephant in the room, which really talks about, is there room to introduce students to conceptual thinking, to frameworks, to putting frameworks around their experiential thinking. So any thoughts around that?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, and I think it's irresponsible to do this kind of stuff without also helping the students understand why, right? And so putting some of those frameworks or some of this conceptual and theoretical work in front of them to help them understand why, I think is absolutely fair and responsible and a thing that you have to do. Right. So I personally don't spend a lot of time on it, right? I give it to them and I help to sort of go through it and give them a brief picture of the why. But I also understand that a lot of that may not sink in until they can actually do it, right? And so if we give it to them, let them do it, and then come back and revisit it to maybe hammer it home.
Have you played around with flipped classroom at all to give the conceptual frameworks and let them kind of absorb some of that on their own, so that when they do come into your environment as the instructor, where now you're facilitating engagement, but classroom provides the opportunity to marry the two, because
right.
A field without theory or concepts isn't really a field.
Yes, absolutely. That model or some version of that model, I think is a really powerful way to do it, right? And again, I don't spend a lot of time in terms of the time I meet with the students going through that stuff, but I definitely want to make sure that they have it and that they have at least a cursory understanding and exposure to it. And I found, again, that if you expose them to it, then you do it, then you debrief it, tying it back, right? Then you're sort of closing the loop, and there's a better chance that they really on a deeper level are understanding that why they're doing this and why it matters. And and they don't look at me as such a kook because they think I just come up with this weird craziness.
Yeah. Let me take some questions from the chat. So this is from Vitali. Let's see. Vitali says, experience beats education. I got it. Okay. But they have to have foundation. Okay. Now he's coming back.
Yep.
It sounds like the focus on your approach is experiential, but the truth is that they also need knowledge. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And a lot of times, I'm not the person that necessarily delivers that, right? They number one, they have this thing, right, that they can go out and find a bunch of knowledge. I can help them understand and learn skills, how to find it and how to evaluate it. I also like to bring in a lot of experts, right? So my students, even though I've been involved in building successful businesses and stuff, my students don't see me as an entrepreneur. They see me as an educator, right? So they don't necessarily trust or believe what I say when it comes to the knowledge part. So I'll bring in other voices, other entrepreneurs to share those things, and then it sort of starts to sink in. But yeah, to your point, to your question, Alex, about the conceptual thinking and all that, it's the same thing with basic knowledge. But again, give it to them and let them start to absorb it, and then let them go out and practice it and do it and mess up, come back, debrief it, and keep going through that cycle and that iteration. And I think it creates a much more powerful experience for them.
Okay, here's another question from Erno.
Mhm.
How do you manage to give agency to students for example, in terms of the deliverables, when the module handbooks, need to be validated
Yeah.
a year in advance and need to be precise,
Yep.
evaluation and making criteria in the details?
Yeah, it's so we all exist in different environments. I get that, I respect that, I understand that. The agency part doesn't have to necessarily be 100% agency over the whole entire thing. The more agency you can give these kids, the more they'll tend to buy in. So again, it could be something as small as, you understand the learning that they need to do around, let's say, customer interviewing, right? The agency can come in the form of how they communicate that to you. Is it in a paper? Is it in a video? Is it in a PowerPoint presentation, right? So you can give them some of that agency without messing with the routine or the deliverable or the learning objective you're shooting for, right? And again, it's breaking it down and it's sort of deconstructing what you're trying to have them do and learn. And within that context, they can own that, right? There's ways that you can give them that ownership. It's scary sometimes because you lose a little bit of control. But in my experience, what they deliver back to me and the experience that they have and they reflect back to me is something that just energizes me and keeps me going. So it's worth the risk, in my opinion.
Hey, Doan, I'm going to switch topics a little
Sure.
bit here. You are the president-elect of USASBE.
I am.
And this is an opportunity for people that are on this chat to meet you in the context of the new and emerging leadership of our main professional organization in the United States.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what is your vision for USASBE, and why in your vision or opinion should people become more involved with USASBE?
Absolutely. No, I appreciate the opportunity, Alex, for that. It's so again, USASBE is a organization here in the United States, mostly, we did have members and wanting more, but it's an inclusive community where we're trying to advance entrepreneurship education through bold teaching, scholarship, and practice, right? And so it's people who want to explore and experience some of the sort of next frontier of what we do, both in the classroom, in our scholarship, and in practice in entrepreneurship centers and all that kind of thing. We're very excited where we're starting to update and adjust the model of USASBE. So we have a new CEO, and the board of directors is becoming more of a governing board than an operational board. I think that's going to really propel us into the future and make us a lot more, help us to be a lot more current and relevant, on an ongoing basis. My focus and I make no bones about it, my passion and my focus is almost squarely on the teaching side of what we do. And so I really hope that, not to ignore the scholarship or the practice part, they all sort of play together, but my hope is to, try to build a bigger, stronger, more woven together network of educators, and well beyond the United States, right? People in Andy Penaluna in Wales there, and people in the Baltic region, and people all over the world are doing amazing things, and we don't know about them. Now that you're doing stuff like this, Alex, we're starting to get to know each other a little bit more and have these touch points. So my goal, big overarching goal for USASBE is going to be to bring in a wider diversity of members who have different perspectives and have different experiences on how do we teach and research and practice this thing called entrepreneurship education, and do it in a way that we teach, right, where we're creating value, we're co-creating value with our members, and the members have some of this agency that I keep talking about to do some of the things that they really are engaged and excited about. I don't want to say too much more, or else I'll freak out. Go in my board.
Open the side door for mummy.
And I appreciate the opportunity, Alex.
It's good. Somebody has a mic on in the back. Could you mute, please? Doan, since my time as USASBE president, I've seen the organization really become very innovative with new programs. We used to be a once-a-year conference kind of an organization, and what I think the more recent and current and future leadership team is really thinking about our organization as a year-round place. One of the most fascinating new innovations that I've seen is Teaching Tuesdays. Can you talk to our audience a little bit about what is Teaching Tuesdays?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we've done. Part of my soapbox I've got on with USASBE for a long time has been, we do our conference, we do it really, really well, but what about the other 51 weeks of the year, right? And so part of what we do is we started this Teaching Tuesdays podcast, and we bring in people short, 15, 20-minute spots where we have them talk about something related to the teaching of entrepreneurship and what their niche and their passion is. So it's a very short, digestible, audio podcast sort of interview and sharing. It's things like that. It's things like the Entrepreneurship Education and Pedagogy Journal that we have. There's a syllabus exchange. There's an exercise exchange. There's all those kind of things where people can share and collaborate around the teaching, the scholarship, and the practice of entrepreneurship and small business, right? Because small business is in the name. It's a part of what we do, and I think oftentimes gets a little bit ignored, right? So that also is something, especially nowadays in this current climate, small business is a pretty important thing to focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you talk about the new USASBE Journal on entrepreneurship and pedagogy. We have a parallel session going on right now, and we've got Eric LaQuarrie talking about some opportunities for our educators to engage with that journal. What are you looking for in that journal?
Yeah, it's really, there's a space there for people to share scholarship around sort of the of entrepreneurship, broadly speaking. So there's, the standard sort of research articles we do, but then there's also an opportunity to share cases, to share learning innovations, whether it be exercises or ways that, programmatically we educate people, outside of the classroom. And so we try to cast a little bit of a broad net to allow people to share how they are teaching, how they are helping others to learn about entrepreneurship in that broad sense.
Mm-hmm. Doan, this has been very enlightening. I mean, I very much appreciate your participation and support of the California Entrepreneurship Educators Conference. And
absolutely,
you're